What is up, jabronis? JJ back here with my favorite new hat, the hat everybody just loves so much. Back with Coop, back with Jay. Quick question before we get the show started, boys. This hat gets a lot of negative hate, and I'm unsure why. Apparently, like, it's not cool to wear just plain white baseball caps these days. Kegger, you're a guy that wears a lot of caps. What's your thoughts on the plain white baseball cap?
I think it plays. I dig it. I have no problem with it, but allow me to take this time to air some grievances. You weren't you weren't on the show last week. I did my best to host the show. During the show, I said, listen, we don't ask for much here. We ask for likes, hit the subscribe button. That's it. I said 2 weeks ago, we gave you 7 units, all pre-race winners. Give us 100 likes, and I'll give you both the plays on the sheet. And that's all they had to do. Did we get there? We didn't. Did we hit them both and make over 3 units? We did. Hit the like button. That's all you got to do. That's all. I'm done.
Thank you, Jay. I think we'll try a few different techniques today. I found you can, once you start to get like sex toys involved and foreplay involved, people tend to itch up and grab that like button. Did you go down any of those rabbit holes on the show?
No. We stayed away from that.
Yeah, that's where things get tough. Coop, on your end, obviously we got the Atlanta, and I believe it's a Quaker Steak 400.
No.
Yep.
Did you say steak like the food?
Like Quaker Steak and Lube? No,
like Quaker State of New Jersey.
Oh, so it's not Quaker Steak.
No, it is not.
Obviously, you're not much into oil lubricants.
That's a shame. That's a shame because Quaker Steak and Lube is a place that absolutely slays. I don't know if you guys have ever been. Few of them. There's not as many on the East Coast, but they are around. And those places absolutely slay. You're talking a nice little bar. It's like Applebee's on steroids, and that's even if you like Applebee's. Bunch of cars hanging from the ceilings. Coop, I would expect you to fuck around with a place like Quaker Steak and Lube.
No. But is that a fitted hat or is it a trucker hat?
It's just a typical snapback.
Oh, yeah. Jay would not be wearing that.
Yeah, I think Jay was jerking me off by saying he likes the hat.
No,
Jay, you got a new hat on. Put your new hat on.
I'm not. No, Joey sent me a hat from the company, High Stake Breaks. So I wear the hat sometimes to show my love and support for one.
That thing is stiff. That hat is stiff.
It's a little stiff. I can't wear a snapback backwards like JJ. It can only be a fitted.
I think you would fuck with a snapback on, Jay. I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit. I think you would fuck with a snapback on. Speaking of fucking, we are at 41 likes here, about 10 minutes in. How about we get to 50 before we even start the breakdown? Huh? You 88 watching that aren't doing anything except for probably piling up Pornhub tabs. Feel free to just fire away on the like button. Would love to get 50 likes before the road gets on the show, as they say. Okay, so I appreciate you guys playing along, but yes, the Atlanta 400 Quaker State. So we'll begin. You know, Coop, I think we usually begin this way anyway, but last week, obviously, I wasn't on the show. How'd it go for you guys? Not so much the show itself, but your results. How'd you guys do? Win, lose, DFS, win, lose. How'd it go?
Betting wise, it was very good. We got the live winner at Reddick at 1,200, and then we got the 2 live, or not live, but the 2 pre-race bets in. DFS was a little bit more challenging. It was an extremely difficult track to pass on. It was a 2-horse race between Reddick and Elliott, and if you did not have either of them, or both of them really, you were not having a great day, and I didn't have either.
Jay, how about yourself?
Yeah, we did well from DFS wise. I
cashed it.
Yeah, I min cashed basically. And then we hit 12-1 on Reddick and the two pre-flop bets. So it was solid. Good.
Yeah, it sounds like that sounds like a fucking fantastic show. And you're over here like, yeah, I mean, I cashed all my double ups and, we won a few of the outrights. I mean,
he's starting to act more like you now.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't like it. Like, I mean, yeah, Jay, you absolutely slay this sport, and you used to talk highly of it. Now you're just like, yeah, well, we caught a few lucky breaks. You can't be sounding like me. I mean, people don't like sound like that.
He sucked yesterday because he listened to Gavin.
Listen, here's the thing, right? Everybody hates the New York Yankees, right? Back in the day from like 96 to 2002. Why? They won all the time, right? And Steinbrenner had no qualms about puffing that chest. Like, it gets old. Like, what am I going to do? Sit here and blow myself every week? We literally win every week. So, I mean, like, it's just getting like, yeah, we did our job. Onward.
Tell you this though, Jay. Every blowjob often feels pretty good. There's no reason to not enjoy the circle jerk that happens on a weekly basis. I think you need to more embrace it. You absolutely smash, and I don't want to hear the monotone, complimenting. It just doesn't even sound like you. So this show started out on a negative, from your side. Yeah, start out as a negative. You have time to close strong, Jay, but negative in my book.
You got
it. Otter brings up a good point. We probably only have 55 likes with 100 people watching because some of you probably double clicked the like button. So let's go ahead, and if that happened, let's go ahead and hit that like button a third time so that it can actually mean something. But with that said, let's move on. We got Tyler in the chat hitting the 100K today. Look, I hope so. Oh man, you deserve it. But no, much love in the chat. Obviously, it's been active. We haven't even started yet. So Coop, let's walk through the track breakdown, if you will, before we go into your playbook.
We're basically playing the lottery today. We have the tempered space track package, which is same as Daytona and Talladega. It's going to race similar to those, but not quite the same exactly. You can get to the front a lot quicker at Talladega and Daytona than what you can here. So track position is, more important. That's not to say that you can't come from the back to the front. That definitely can happen. So, you have some Dominator points out there, more than what you do at Daytona and Talladega. But, in the spring, we saw, 20 different leaders. So fastest laps are going to be evened out and spread out throughout the field. And most likely the laps led will too. I don't expect to see a race like what we saw yesterday in Xfinity. I think, Twitter universe got a little upset about it, and they just remember what happened last, where, nobody really tried to pass Austin Hill. And that's what made it a bad race in their mind, when in actuality, the race was very similar to what we saw in the spring, except, the long run happened, at the beginning of the race in spring, and it happened, here at the end. And that's what people remember. So, the big thing that stuck out for me yesterday was the Xfinity cars had a huge amount of problems with the handling. And if you've watched any NASCAR this year, you know that these Cup cars that are new are difficult to handle. So I expect, the race to be very similar to what we saw in the spring. Expect a lot of side-by-side, and then expect some cautions here and there. So, it's going to be a wild race. Typically books start the opening winners out at plus 600, 700, 750. This week it's a plus 1,000, so, any one of probably 25 different drivers could win this race.
Jay, Coop brought up a few good points, one of which the variance in this race in particular. And granted, we know variance firsthand in this sport. How is that playing into the pre-bet spots you're making? Because let's be honest, you got the sheet loaded up today. And if you guys can get us to 100 likes, Jay will give you 3 or 4 of your favorite ones on that sheet. How's that work?
Sure.
Cool. So yeah, let's get those fingers out of the anus and into the like button. But Jay, as far as this track goes, pre-race, what are some thoughts?
Yeah, because of these new cars, and they repaved Atlanta last year. Now they put the restrictor plate package on for this track, which they run at Talladega and Daytona. And if you know anything about that type of racing, it's like cars going a buck 80 within inches of each other, 10 deep to 15 deep sometimes. And at Talladega and Daytona, it's 30 deep sometimes. So there is going to be a ton of volatility today, right? So, like Coop says, ordinarily, especially my betting style, Jay, and now Coop does with NASCAR. I don't bet outrights often pre-race. I like to maybe take a shot on somebody I like and then do the majority of my betting live, so I leave room to make money. But at tracks like Talladega and Daytona, because the opening odds are way better, like Coop said, you're normally going to see a Cup favorite around 6-1. Here, it was 10, 11, 12 to 1 at open. So I took shots. I think that there are cars in this race, if everything went well between 30 and 60 to 1, if it all broke right, could win the race. And then I think that there are 4 or 5 cars between that 10 to 20 to 1 range that have a better chance than others if they can get through unseen. So more chances. I took more shots pre-race than any race this year so far.
I might be adding a IR in front of that crush responsibly, slogan that you monitor.
I love it though. I think that, look, if you're finding edges, it's obviously got to be trusted. I mean, you've been absolutely smashing the sport for years. And so despite the more variance, it's nice to see at least someone on this show is really confident going into the race. So love to see it. Coop, we'll just slide right into your playbook. Obviously there's a decent amount of, laps led and fastest laps up for grabs as far as points go. So it's very likely you're going to need at least one Dominator today, at least. Place differential has obviously been a big year for that in the DFS streets. But who do you like at the top?
Yeah, from a Dominator perspective, you're going to probably need 1 to 2. If we see a rain-shortened race that gets to 131 laps and becomes official, perhaps we don't see a Dominator. If it stays around that number. So, but William Byron read 111 laps in the spring. We saw Austin Hill lead quite a few laps yesterday. So you definitely want to have one Dominator in your lineup. The tough part is determining who that Dominator will be, because it could be any one of the drivers who start in the top, 25. We could see Bubba Wallace become a Dominator starting 32nd, Denny Hamlin starting 16th. It just is a bevy of options of who it could be. Ross Chastain, Ryan Blaney, and William Byron had the best cars here in the spring. Will that equate over to the day? We don't know. But they've been very fast, all year in this type of format for this racing, especially Chastain and Blaney. So the other piece with these guys that are starting up front, they carry a lot of downside. This is really a place differential race from a points perspective, because the fastest laps are going to be spread around. The laps led will most likely be spread around. So, they carry a lot of downside from the losing place differential positions. So, I don't plan on playing anybody, starting in the top 12. I'll start with William Byron at 13. And, the other piece that makes it difficult to play these drivers up front is they get more ownership than what is warranted for them, because this is strictly based upon points, how we want to achieve the day. And don't worry about the value of hitting 5 times, just worry about who creates the most points. And, if you follow this at Daytona, you follow it at Talladega, even earlier this year, the majority of the points come from drivers starting, 15th all the way back to 36. So My plan is to start the drivers starting 13th or more and hope that, one or two or three of them get the majority of, the fastest laps and lap sled for my Dominators.
And as you guys know, I haven't been a Ross Chastain guy for quite some time now. Actually, I haven't been him all season. I think that he had a really strong run for a bit, and then obviously he's tailed off a bit, but he's still been strong. But obviously, you guys know I heavy MME this sport, and I could be wrong. Has Ross Chastain not been in an optimal in 2 months?
I don't think he has, but I mean, I could be wrong.
I'm not sure.
I think, with him not having a better finish than fourth going back quite some time, and at his price point, I don't think he's likely hasn't been in an optimal since May 1st. He was definitely in the optimal on 424, may not have been in the optimal on May 1st. But it's been some time. And, in this spot, again, I hate to force myself to stay on brand with fading him again, because I do think this is a good spot. But Coop, someone like myself that's been keen on fading him, do you think it still makes sense to stay on that auto X button, or should I have some even lighter?
I mean, he could drive around in second, third, or fourth all day, and if he doesn't get a good amount of fastest laps and laps led, he's not going to pay off. And I mean, he carries so much downside to where if he finishes 10th. Even if he gets a couple Dominator points, there's more than likely drivers who are going to start farther back who gain more positions who outscore him from a point perspective. So, that's the ultimate why I faded him, and he's going to be 20-25% owned because, there's still a lot of people out there that don't understand the scoring. And, Chase Elliott's going to have huge ownership today because Chase is Chase. People love to play Chase. He's NASCAR's most popular driver, he's doing very well the last couple of weeks. So, he's going to be a big, popular play today. So I'm just going to stay away from him and, play how I've been playing these, races in the past and go from there. And I mean, people will say, well, what if we don't get a bunch of cautions? You don't need a bunch of cautions because, if you watch the Xfinity race yesterday, pit stops were crazy. You saw all kinds of top tier drivers, have issues, and it's going to happen again today. And, I was like telling Jay earlier today, these cars haven't been on track, all weekend. And I can guarantee you they're going to get on track and somebody's going to have an issue within the first lap, even before the race even starts. We saw it yesterday with Austin Hill and, he didn't have any communication. So, some crazy things will happen at the beginning. I'm not worried about it. They'll find their way up front. And the drivers in the front will, slowly but surely lose positions.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting slate because there's not as many. Like typically, you have that I guess what I'll refer to as like a whale place differential spot. I think obviously Kyle Busch is in a good spot, but you typically in these races you've typically had one or two guys that are outside of 25th place, whether it's in a backup car or it's in they had issues with the primary on the day before. Where they have decent win equity. Today, you don't really have that. Now, obviously, we'll talk on place differential in a bit, but it really seems like it's a Kyle Busch show there. I mean, granted, you can risk with Hamlin or Logano, but I've mentioned this before. I don't like playing Logano from the middle. I like when I can get him somewhere in the top 10 to start, and he can build on it and lead some laps. But I guess we'll go through all that at a later point. But Jay, obviously, during this portion, we like to have you talk on some of the odds-on favorites to win. Coming into the race, we have it looks like almost a three-way split for winning. Who do you like, as far as value, maybe at the top to sneak out a dub?
Yeah, so they were here back in March, so we have some data on this package and Atlanta. And Chevy and Ford probably looked better than Toyota did. But it's hard to judge Toyota because they did have some cars up there, but they wrecked or didn't finish well. So in my opinion, going into this race, I think if they get through clean, Ross Chastain, Ryan Blaney, and every Hendrick motor on the track, which is Henrik, Stenhouse, who else, Coop?
That might be it.
That might be it. Okay. So I think that those 7 guys probably have, if they can get through the race clean, a better chance to win this race than anybody else, because they've proven that their speed has just been better. Ryan Blaney was first here in speed in March. Byron won the race. He was right there. Stenhouse had the lead. So I think that Chastain, Blaney, and Byron, and I like Chase Elliott personally. He's a Hendrick car. I think he'll be good. I think those first 4 cars, if they can get through clean, have a very good chance of being there at the end and winning the race. And then further on back, I mean, we'll get through it as you go through the playbook, but I like Chastain, Blaney, Elliott, and Byron in terms of your odds-on favorites. I think they all have a good chance.
Okay, love it. We will slide over to place differential now. Coop, as I look through this, I will say that the last time we did a show, which was 2 weeks ago, I'll be honest. And obviously, you guys know I don't talk myself up too often, but I really thought I had that race pretty well pegged. My ownerships were good. I was higher on the field on the guys that were winning. I don't remember off the top of my head, but didn't something weird happen with like 20 laps left in that race? Like either a weird caution or a mistimed caution where like half the racers were in pit and half the racers didn't pit. So a lot of people.
Yeah, that was the race where Truex pitted at the end, right? That hurt you in the 444, but helped you.
No, so that's the race where I binked. I'm more talking about the week after that. It was 2 weeks ago because I wasn't on the show with you guys this week, and I didn't play NASCAR last week. But 2 weeks ago, I do remember that an accident happened while cars were starting.
Oh yeah. That was the one when Toyota, like Kyle Busch and Truex and Denny Hamlin and all them came down pit road.
Yeah, they were all in the top 5. They came down pit road with like 5 laps to go.
Yeah, but it wasn't even just, and obviously that skewed things as well, definitely, which was interesting. But I think the reason their hands were forced.
Oh, that's because Chris Buescher lost his freaking tire.
Yeah, something happened. What happened? Like 20 or 25 laps left, or maybe it was more than that, where people were pitting and like 10 or 12 cars like luck boxed and didn't pit, and then the accident happened, and then all those 10 or 12 cars got pushed to the front. But it just goes to show you, obviously you have to get the sport right, but there's still going to be dramatics at the end that are going to screw you or help you. So yeah, I mean, I feel like I have a race coming where I'm just going to be so dead wrong. I felt like I was pretty right in the last race, but again, you just get some weirdness at the end.
And that goes for NASCAR betting. Like if you're a hardcore recreational NASCAR bettor, you are going to learn quickly that you are going to lose races you have no business losing, and you're going to win races that you have no business winning because of the same late caution that'll make it or break it. So like
it comes down to the best car doesn't always win.
Exactly.
But again, that's what kind of makes the sport fun, right? I think it's that added variance, that you get that you're just not going to get from any other sports, which again makes you kind of feel like you're really never out of it. But it also makes you feel like you've never really won it. But again, that's what makes the suspense great. So as we move over to place differential drivers, and why I brought that up, and I know I went on a tangent, so sorry about that. Bubba Wallace was a guy that I was very hard on 2 weeks ago on this show, where I more or less said that I don't think he's just a very good driver. Granted, of course, when you compare him to other pros, I'm not saying I'm better than him, but I will say this: the race 2 weeks ago, he got very unlucky. He was racing very good 2 weeks ago. And I want to say it was a blown tire. Something happened that was not his fault at all. And then he just kind of couldn't regain. And then I think he got himself back to the front. And then I think
then the pit crew destroyed him, bro.
Yeah.
He literally said to the crew chief, "Don't fucking talk to me for the rest of the race." He literally said that.
Yeah, I mean, so like I said, it makes it obviously I'm happy to see him race well. I think he could race well today. But interesting. So Coop, he's at the top for your list here. So walk me through him and some of the other guys you like in this tier.
He would be your well play because he has all that place differential upside. And of the drivers starting in the back, he by far has the best potential of leading laps and getting fastest laps. he's shown over the last 3 or 4 types of races, that are similar to this, Atlanta, Daytona, and Talladega, that he's very good at this type of racing now. He has a good piece of equipment. He's confident, and, he's just had bad luck, in those races, other than the one where he won, where it ended up raining, but, he had a bad Atlanta break. He's had some bad other breaks at Daytona, so on and so forth. But, you can put him up there, to be in contention at some point during this race. Now, whether he stays there or not, it's the other question. He's going to be going hard for a win because it's his best chance to get into the playoffs. And, that carries more, downside when that happens. So, definitely have some Bubba. Don't be stupid and fade him, because he does have the highest upside on this slate by far. The rest of the drivers in this place differential all have great upside, from Kurt Busch all the way back to, the 35th, 36th place starting drivers. I'll just go through, Eric Jones is going to be popular. Brad Keselowski is going to be popular. Austin Dillon's going to be popular. Corey LaJoie is going to be somewhat popular. Corey LaJoie is very good at these types of tracks, and he's ended up on optimals, numerous times. So he just has a good knack of avoiding the accidents. Those will probably be your most popular drivers of this group. But the ones that I really like Kurt Busch. I really like Eric Amarola. They're starting in the early 20s. They're not going to be nearly as high owned. They have just as much upside, as the other drivers that we've mentioned. Then you have Justin Haley, who, if he was starting 29th or 30th, would be one of the most popular drivers. But because he's starting 24th, his ownership's going to go down quite a bit. He has a knack for finding a way to the front in these races. And then you have Harrison Burton, Todd Gilliland. Again, neither one of these drivers are going to be popular whatsoever, but they avoid the accidents. They can have a chance to be up there just like, any of these other drivers. The drivers, that are starting way in the back, like, Cody Ware, BJ McLeod, those types, take a couple sprinkles if you want to. They're going to be needing some attrition to be able to get up there. They really need probably a top 20, to pay off. Top 25 is probably not going to get it done because they're going to need more points. But, a couple of them finished in the top 20 in the spring here. So don't be afraid to take some gambles on them. Noah Graxon's another driver that's not going to be highly owned. That is much better than these drivers that are starting, like BJ McLeod and Cody Ware. He has better equipment. He's very good at this type of racing also. So, but the biggest thing in here is, like, don't get caught up and play like all of your lineups, Bubba and Keselowski or Jones and Graxon. Mix and match here, because as the drivers get eliminated, the more you have combination wise of the same ones, the more, your lineups become dead. So mix and match all these drivers, try to get as much variation as what you can. Because again, truly it's a lottery, just who ends up there at the end, and ownership will go a big way, because like I said, those drivers I mentioned, they're probably going to be mid-teens to probably a couple of them under 10%.
Yeah, I mean, a lot to sift through there. I'll be honest, like, I like playing Bubba when he's going to be like 30% owned or less. He's going to be high today. Like, he has to be high owned today. He'll
be the highest owned driver on the slate.
He's like the nuts on place differential driver. He's got good win equity. I'm not saying fade Bubba Wallace today. I'm just saying, if you're multi-entering tournaments, either lock him in or fade him. Because
what do you do though? Do you say, you know what, I'll take the free square and get different somewhere else?
Yeah, I think
I disagree with what you said there, JJ, because in a normal race, I think you have to either fade him or play him at a high rate. But for this race, there's so many different variations that you can come up with. There's so many different potential ways that you can win with this race. I don't think you have to be all in on him. and still be able to, do well with them.
Yeah, I think what I'm getting at is, and I'm just talking MMEs. I think in cash, he's a lock. I think you don't play cash, you got to lock him in.
What about like single entries, low fields, like 200-300 people?
Like I think to me, it's a similar thing because he's going to be super high owned, and in the higher stakes, he's going to be even higher. You could look at it as a free square, and if you do, lock him in. Like just lock him in, or like I said, or you just hope his pit or somebody fucks him, like what seemingly happens every Bubba Wallace race. And because here's the thing, if you're talking just winning a tournament, I'm not talking cashing. I'm talking winning a tournament. You're going to need to be somewhat close to an optimal, and you're probably going to need Bubba to be an eighth at his price. Like, it's not like he's 7,400. I mean, he's 9K.
He's got some money on him this week.
What?
He's like 8,700. He's probably the most expensive he's been all year.
Yeah. So you're not getting him at a discount today. So you're going to need him to crack the top 10 for sure to be in your optimal, and maybe even lead some laps, which he might. He definitely can find his way to the front.
I mean, I think he could win the race. Like he's that good on this format. But the problem is you just can't bet him at 15-1. It's hard to. But I think that he's got that kind of upside, don't you, Coop?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I think he has a ton of upside, and that's why I'm saying like the upside alone. Like if you're going to enter like 20 or more lineups today, and again, any less, feel free to flirt with ownership percentages however you want with any racer. But I think if you're going to enter 20 or more lineups today, I just think you're better off locking him in or fading him. Lock him in, root for him to do well, and then. But again, when you play these big tournaments like the $15 with 20,000 people in it, I mean, think about it. If Bubba Wallace goes off, okay, and you max entered him at 150 entries, okay, you're still competing with 10,000 entries that have Bubba Wallace in their lineup. So to me, when you're entering big tournaments, when you're going to get a guy in this spot like Bubba Wallace at high ownership, if we're talking leverage, it probably makes sense long-term to fade him in this spot. Now, granted,
because the other 50% is what he hits the wall in the first wreck, and half the lineups in the tournament are dead.
Correct. So you're hoping in a track that's going to have its own variant. You're hoping. Now, granted, again, I typically play this on a week-by-week basis. I don't always take stands like this, and I have to still figure out 100% what I want to do with Wallace. Wallace is the trickiest component for me today. Like I said, in cash, lock him in. Don't even think twice about it. He gets into an accident, so be it. In cash, he's going to be like 90% owned. Like he has to be. So it's not going to hurt you that much if he bangs the wall. Likely, won't hurt you. But in tournaments, especially big field tournaments, a guy like Wallace in a tournament that has 2,000 or more entries, you're going to be going toe to toe with half the field's entries of Bubba Wallace. So just something to consider when you're building your lineups, because if you want to hit that big splash, and you can with a guy like Wallace in your lineup today, but you are more likely long-term to hit that big splash when you're fading guys like Wallace in this spot. And again, nothing against Wallace. I think he's in a great spot today. I think place differential is in a great spot. I don't like playing these drivers when they're going to be this high owned in these spots. But anyway, that's just some perspective. Obviously, everybody's different. But Jay, in terms of the guys from the back towards the front, obviously like Wallace, anybody else catch your eye?
Yeah, in that 20 to 30-1 range. I mean, like Chris Bell's kind of interesting at 20-1, considering he was the third fastest car on the track at Atlanta earlier in March. So, I mean, I guess I don't mind. I think if it all broke right for Busch at 25-1, he can get there. Bowman 25-1, he's a Hendrick car. And then, you have like just good plate guys, Buescher, Dillon, Almirola, Stenhouse, McDowell, Jones, all in that 30 to 40-1 range today that, they could win the race today. It could happen. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And at here, Daytona or Talladega. So those would be the value spots that I'd be looking towards in that range.
Love it. Love it. And folks watching the show, obviously we're running through our NASCAR playbook. This is up for every NASCAR race. We run through it. Coop does a great job with this entire rundown. We're running through that. The core plays in the playbook are something that, we do a little different here at Run Pure than everybody else. If you're enjoying the content on this show, feel free to sign up to Run Pure Sports. RPS Heater 25 gets you 25% off your first payment on monthly or weekly subs. Doesn't include Sabre Sim if you're into that. if you are somebody who pushes lineups like that. But again, you get all the core plays, you get all the playbooks, you get the Discord access, and you get all the private shows, a bunch of private shows as well. And of course, I think I mentioned the Discord, how much that helps as well. Of course, up to lock on slates. And DC's been crushing that in baseball. Just all around good stuff, folks. And needless to say, let's get a quick cup check, if you will. 92 likes. We are 8 away from Jay giving out his 3 or 4 best NASCAR plays of today. So feel free to go ahead and poke that like button 8 times for you folks. It's not hard with as many of you are watching. Needless to say, let's move on to the middle tier. I feel like I say this on every show. This is where you win tournaments in this section. So your mid-price drivers that have win equity, your mid-price drivers that have place differential. Obviously, Bubba Wallace is more on the place differential end, so you're not going to hear his name in this piece. But this is where you win, because you can typically find some middle-priced gentlemen that will make the difference between absolutely winning a tournament and profiting. So, Coop, who do we like here?
Real quick, 2 things I want to say before we move there that are kind of important. One, there's going to be a competition caution today at lap 25. That's just another opportunity for the drivers in the back to move up, and the drivers in the front to move back. So, another reason not to play the drivers starting up front. And then second, they've moved the race up to 3:03 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. DraftKings still has lock at 3:25. If you think you're going to be smart and nifty and change your lineup at 3:15, after the race has started, because of what's happened here and there, you're more than welcome to do it, but they will refund you because anything that happens after the lock, they're going to refund.
Usually, Coop, they send an email too, don't they, where they say they push the start time up?
Yeah, they usually do, but there's been a couple slates here recently where they haven't. So. I don't know. And then the other thing is they still don't have Landon Castle as part of the driver field, and he's replaced Josh Bilicki. So anyways, just a couple notes. As far as this tier, it's a tier that I love. It's a tier that I hope that does well for me because I'm banking on it. You've got some drivers who have Dominator upside, win upside, place differential upside. But along with it, it comes the downside because, if they get into a quick early wreck, they're going to lose quite a few points also. Typically, these drivers are not as highly owned as what you would anticipate, even with some of their names that are going to be in here. Denny Hamlin, great at this type of format, starting 16th. That alone should keep his ownership down. You're probably going to see Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, Ryan Blaney, all more popular than Denny Hamlin, while Denny Hamlin has more upside than him. Kyle Busch, another great play. Chris Bell, I think, is a sneaky great play. Not many people are going to play him starting 15th, and he spent the majority of this Atlanta race up front. He's also had a very fast car the entire year. He's just had a lot of issues on pit road and issues that he's brought onto himself occasionally too. But, Joey Logano, another great play. My worry with Joey, just like JJ said, he doesn't do as well in dirty air, meaning 15th place on back, as what he does, near the front. So if he can get to the front, I think he's going to be a threat. It's just a matter of, if and when it happens. He was strong here earlier in the year too, but had some issues. But obviously my favorite play, here is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. The guy starting 20th, he's going to have much less ownership than what he should carry because of that. In my opinion, he's the best driver in this type of format there is out there. He gets up there every single time, every single race. He gets a bad rap because he's involved in a lot of accidents, but not all those accidents are his doing. The thing is he had a phenomenal car in the spring. He could go high, he could go low, he could push cars, he could be pushed. He was well on his way to winning that second stage before his tire blew out. I think he's going to have the same exact, type of setup and car as what he had earlier this year. And he's going to be up there. And, he's a great pivot off of Bubba Wallace because, if Bubba doesn't have, like JJ said, a top 10 finish and finishes 15th, and Stenhouse is up there. The ownership between the two, I would not be surprised if Ricky Stenhouse is like half the ownership of what Bubba Wallace is.
Yeah, and that's fair. Like I said, I think that obviously if you happen to fade Wallace today on multi-entries, you're going to have to play guys like Stenhouse. I think Stenhouse is fine. I think his price makes sense. I think he's got win upside. And I'll be honest, like maybe this is a hot take. I feel like he's been, believe it or not, this year has been a ton of cautions, historical amount of cautions. I think this year he's actually been cleaner than he was last year. I mean, granted, that's not saying much because I felt like every week last year he got into wrecks. But needless to say, I feel like he's been relatively solid. You get him at a cheap enough price. He's got win equity. He's got good place differential. He's in just a really good spot.
He's in a good frame of mind too. I mean, he recently, he knows where his future is. He's re-signed to drive again here next year. So he doesn't have that in the back of his mind or anything, like some of these other drivers, have that other thing to bother them. So, I just think he's in a great situation today, and, I think if he was on a top tier team, I'll hold back from saying what I told Jay earlier, because he, about fell off his chair, but he's the best driver out there.
And here's why I also, and as you guys know, I'm always looking for pivots. I like Stenhouse for the main reason that everyone around him is in a quote unquote better spot betting wise. And they're cheaper. So like people are going to want to play Austin Dillon more, Eric Jones more, Keselowski more. I'm not saying Stenhouse is going to go unowned because he's going to see ownership today, but he's not going to see the ownership those three names I just mentioned are.
Right. And I think a lot of this is trust at the end of the race between other drivers. And if, let's say, Kyle Busch and Martin Truex and Kevin Harvick are up front, and they have to choose between Stenhouse, Bubba Wallace, and Keselowski of who to partner up with, I guarantee you they're going to take Ricky Stenhouse.
And to set the record straight, I agree with Coop that Stenhouse is a great place driver, but he said he was better than Dale Earnhardt, Jay.
That's not what I said.
That is, you said at plate driving on that format.
No, that's not what I said. I said that if he was in top tier equipment and he had like a Gibbs car or a Hendrick Motorsports car, he would have as many wins as Dale Earnhardt and Dale Earnhardt Jr.
I'm pulling the tape. To compare Ricky Stenhouse in any way,
he's that good.
Earnhardt is just disgusting.
Well, the good part is, Coop, with hot takes like that, that's how you fall into the quote unquote visionary status when things work out. So we'll see, obviously, over the next trajectory for Stenhouse's career over the next few years. I personally have liked what I've seen from him this year, but this is the first year I've liked what I've seen from him. So take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, I think all things considered, on a year where there's been a crazy amount of wrecks, I think he's been above the mean. So I somewhat agree with you, Coop, but I'm not taking the outrageous perspective, but I do agree that he's been good. And folks, thank you. We got to 100 likes. You know what? Let's play a game because there's 177 of you watching. If we get to 50 more likes, or I guess at this point 43 because my math sucks, 150 likes, Jay will give out his whole card. So buckle the fuck up, folks, and start liking the video. Okay, moving on. Actually, middle tier, Jay, real quick from you. Middle tier, anybody you like from the middle of the pack backwards or forwards to make some noise?
Yeah, I think like Stenhouse, that Coop likes him to win today at 35-1. I like. You can get McDowell 66-1 at Bet365. I like. Jones 50-1. I like. Those would be the three guys in that range right there that I would be targeting.
You get Amarola at 65.
Oh, Almer, yeah, you like him too, Coop, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to bet him. I mean, but that's a good number on him.
Yeah. So those would be the three guys: Stenhouse, McDowell, and Jones. I think they're all very good plate drivers. So,
Jones, I think, was the other driver I should have mentioned who will be very popular among the place differential up there too.
Love it. Okay, moving on. We on the fades, I guess, but okay. Oh, we didn't go place differential today, Coop. We went risky place differential today. All right, so walk us through, why are these guys more risks? It looks like we have a few guys on here that maybe attrition is going to be a big piece. Maybe that's where the risk
Yeah, I
is.
kind of hit on these earlier. You got Cody Ware, Gregson, McDowell, and that group of drivers that, other than Gregson, they're going to need attrition to help. Noah's going to have a good car. He does well at this type of racing to get up there. He's going to be no owned. Cody Ware was probably the best driver of the other ones that, in this type of style format of racing. He's done well at Talladega and Daytona in the past. So I would have some shots on him. McLeod, you're just going to need some, attrition and hope that he stays clean. And the piece that keeps these guys clean is, they're slow and they typically don't hang with the lead packs, the secondary packs. And, that helps them from avoiding, the wrecks. You just got to hope that their car mechanically holds together.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that this is always a risky portion. And I know I said the last tier is where races are won. This tier is where you can always be different, because I think there's a lot of people that red X a lot of these drivers from the beginning. But again, you're hoping to get attrition to go your way. With some of these drivers, just accidents happening and just they kind of organically move up. You don't need a whole lot from these drivers, though, to get you what you need to win a tournament. The problem is that for them to get there, they consistently need help from other drivers. Graxon's 2,500 on FanDuel. What happened? What happened there? But
I bet him earlier this week at 250 to 1.
Nice. Yeah, I will say this. Obviously, FanDuel has, I think, one less driver than DK, so it does make getting guys right mean a lot. But that price is just kind of crazy with what you can probably slide in with including him in your lineup.
Yeah, but the thing with FanDuel, like in place differential, like you only get a half a point. Finishing position is really, really important in FanDuel. So that and completing the laps.
Interesting. And that's a good point too. I only labeled the one driver less, but you bring up a good point on place differential having less value on that site. So maybe it's almost like an itch not needed to scratch at 2,500. But again, I can't blame those plays. Jay, is there anybody deeper in odds? I'll say maybe more than 50 to 1 that you have your eye on during the race that you might hit live.
You know what? That it'll all depend on where my drivers are that I'm going into the race with up front, depending on if I would get on somebody. But listen, Corey LaJoie was 300 to 1 earlier today on Bet365. Great plate driver. If it all went right for him, like really, really, really right, could he get there? Yeah. Like Coop said, Noah Gregson, great in the format. Could he get there if it all went right? Yeah. But no, I'll primarily be looking to go in with what I have, and then I'm going to make them make me bet somebody else. You know what I mean?
You got to be really careful betting this race because, things can change so quickly. Like yesterday, Jay ended up getting Brandon Brown at 25 to 1. I ended up getting him at 80 to 1. And, he was doing really well for a good portion of the race. And then he had an issue and fell back and, eventually ended up hitting the wall. So, you got to pick your choices. Like you can't get too heavily involved. You got to watch, the number. Like, it doesn't hurt, when you're taking 25s and 80s, 1s, and 60 to 1 shots. But where you've got to watch is, the 10s and the 15s and the 12s, because if you get too heavily involved with them, it hurts. And then, I think you also got to be able to watch the race live and be able to bet it. I'm not as heavily involved as Jay today, strictly because I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch the race tomorrow if it gets rained out. I don't want to have a lot of bets, out there that, I have no control over. Jay's in a great spot. If the guys that he has doesn't win or come close to winning, he's still in a spot to where, he can get a 6 to 5 to 7 to 1 and, make a profit or, break even. on his card. So, it's all a matter of being able to watch the race and being smart about it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And last but not least, some fade drivers. Now, I know, Jay, on your end, you probably never have a driver pre-race that you quote unquote fade betting wise, right? Because you're more or less implying that no matter how good they look during the race, you're not going to live bet them.
Right.
Coop, on your end, who are some drivers today? Maybe it's because of ownership leverage. Maybe it's because you don't like them today. Maybe it's because their price is too high. But who are some guys that you're fading today on this slate?
All the top 12 for me. And that's just strictly because of the downside that they carry. Will one of them or maybe two of them bite me in the butt? Probably. But knowing which two they are, that's the hard thing to figure out because you can't play all these drivers. And then the other piece too is I think more than likely, the majority of them will have issues. And at the ownership that they're going to be at, you're going to, end up being on the better side for the most part. Yeah. I don't think Cindric's going to be very high owned. So, he might be somebody who you can take a couple of shots at. Busher and McDowell possibly be low owned, but I don't know. They've been running so well here recently. We might see more people jump on them than what is warranted.
This might be a hot take. I don't think Cindric's playable at all at his price. I think at 8,100, you more or less need him to T5. He could, but remember, if he's not going to lead laps, which he might lead a few, but I just think this race plays out 100 times. What do we think? Cindric wins this race 5-6 times, maybe out of 100. And you literally need him to T5 here for you. Now, granted, from a being different perspective, sure. But you want to be different with upside. I don't even know what Cindric's upside is. I mean, he's got low win equity. It's not exactly like I don't know if Cindric's better on the is it the dirt where he's better, him and Suarez, the two of them?
Road course, he's good on the road courses.
Yeah, so you're not getting him in his element either. I just personally think he's borderline unplayable. But again, a guy that will make you different if you play him. If he T5s for you, he's likely going to be in the optimal. But I can tell you this, even if he T5s at his price, he still might not be in the optimal. You're not going to get any place differential. If he doesn't lead any laps, even if he finishes fifth, he still might not win you a tournament. Right. But again, I'm talking the massive tournaments. I'm not talking the 100 people, 200 people. Obviously, 100 people, 200 people, Cindric could T10 and win it for you. But just giving you some perspective.
I hope he ends up being more than 10% owned. I mean, that's great leverage against the field.
I can't see how he'd be that high. He might be, but I can't see how he'd be that high. But that's what makes it fun, right? Trying to predict the ownership. I think that's what makes this sport just as fun as any other sport, for that matter.
I will say, typically, like in the contests that are $15 and less, like the drivers that you think are going to be really highly owned in Daytona and Talladega typically end up being much lower owned than what you think they're going to be.
It's fair. That's definitely fair. I think I find myself struggling too, like, trying to predict things. And I look at some ownership and I'm like, Jesus, I thought this guy was going to be high owned, but woof, he's way high owned. So I think it does make it tough. But again, that's what makes it fun, right? Trying to predict that aspect, because I think what gets lost in translation in DFS is people spend a lot of time trying to figure out who's going to get them the most points. But in reality, what you really need to figure out is what player ownership is going to be, and then dictate your lineups off of that to be different. And I'm talking in the mass scale tournaments, because again, that's where you could take your shots. Who the 15% guys, 15% owned guys that you hit the lock button on, things like that are where you find your edges to just keep sliding lineups up the board. Okay, so final notes for this track, Jay. Start with you. Anything you want to, and of course during your final notes segment, Jay, we didn't get to 150 because there's a few pikers in the chat, but we did get to 130-ish. So
is that good enough?
So it's good enough to give out 4 plays, Jay. So four plays you're on today betting wise.
Only 4. All right. So ordinarily I'm a conservative pre-race bettor. Everybody knows that about me. I put as many plays on the sheet today as I have in the last 4 cup races combined. Why? Because the prices pre-flop are the best that they're going to be all year, with the exception of Daytona and Talladega. Number 2, if the goal is to get a few guys through, That was my thought process. I bet 7 outrights, including the play that I tailed Coop on. Okay. But 3 of those outrights are on bombs, 50 to 1, 50 to 1, 66 to 1, but they're only quarter unit plays. So I'll
hold on, Jay. Let me cut you off if you don't mind. So it makes sense for you to dump the whole wheelbarrow. However, we need 17 more likes, folks. 17, 1-7. It's not hard. There's 175 of you watching. 17 of you like it, and Jay will give out the whole card. We'll give you the next 2 to 3 minutes to do so. Coop will go to you for final notes on your thoughts on the track. And while we're doing this, guys, don't fall asleep at the wheel. Like the video.
Jay, did you hear that your man Zach Wilson slept with his mom's best friend?
No, but that's fantastic. I mean, good for him.
That's some crazy stuff, man.
Good for him.
Yeah.
At least he's hit the target.
Yeah, but no, like if you're gonna get heavily invested in, like, I think it's smarter, like, instead of going like 75, 80, 90, 100% on like Bubba Wallace or Keselowski, like, I think if you want to be really different and win a lot of tournaments and have a lot of names up front, like, I didn't even mention, but Cole Custer is going to be another driver that's going to be low owned. But Custer, Harrison Burton, Gilliland, Bush, Amarola, and Haley, like, try to get as overweight as possible on them, and Stenhouse, because I think, if they end up front, you're going to have a huge edge versus the field in their ownership.
I like it. And we sit at 146. My blood's kind of boiling. But Jay, we will meet these folks in the middle. It's been a good show for us all around. Good commentary in the live chat. So regardless, yes, we will fulfill your needs. Maybe you guys will be nice and like it to get us to 150 anyway. But Jay, undo the chamber.
Yeah. So the reason why I get invested is the format pre-race, and we're getting the best odds basically that we're going to get all year pre-flop. The goal is to get 3 or 4 drivers through to the end clean, because if you do that and they're towards the front of the field, it gives you a ton of leverage on the prices that you're going to be able to take shots on, even at 25 and 30 to 1 really late, to ensure that you're going to make money. So what I did was I bet 7 outrights. Okay. I think that Will Byron, Ryan Blaney, Ross Chastain, and Chase Elliott have a very good chance to win this race today. I think that Blaney is a great Ford, and I think that Chastain and basically Hendrick Motorsports, I think, are going to have the nut power today. So I took Byron, Chastain, Elliott, and Blaney, all of them at 12 and 10 to 1, all for a unit each. Then I threw a quarter unit on McDowell at 66 to 1. I threw a quarter unit on Ricky Stenhouse at 50 to 1, which was a tail of Coops. I threw a quarter unit on Eric Jones at 50 to 1. In addition to that, I bet 2 top 10s. Ricky Stenhouse to hit the top 10 at plus 170. Eric Jones to hit the top 10 at plus 160. The only other bet that I placed was me and Coop on our bet show found an interesting DK special. Chevy finishes 1-2 at plus 300. I like that because I think that they're going to have the nuts today at the end of the day. So I think they're going to run 1-2. And if they don't, it's probably going to be because of somebody like Blaney or a couple Fords or Gibbs. But I think they got a shot. So those are the plays that I'm on. Crush responsibly. But so it's like almost 9 unit investment, which is absurd for what I usually do. But listen, man, if we can get some cars through, it's going to put you in a phenomenal spot late. And if we can't get some cars through, you're still probably going to be able to hit a live winner that's going to basically either break you even, and maybe you pick up money on the top 10s and the special DK bet. So that's the route that I'm going to go. And if you guys tell me on it, good luck. I hope we crush. One final note, the live betting show is free today. on our Run Pure Bets YouTube channel at 3:00. So if you guys want to come and hang out with me and Coop, you guys are more than welcome to on the bet side at 3. And I am done.
Love it.
Well, we got a new secret weapon on there, man. We're just the third wheel now, man. We got to come and find out what Gavin's pick is.
Yeah.
Gavin needs to join the show. I mean, Gavin's like the Wizard of Oz, you know. You never see his face. Occasionally you hear his voice.
He's on a roll.
But yeah, no, much love with Gavin, and that dude absolutely fucks up college football too. So you love to see it. But look, folks, real quick before we tip out, just want to talk on the best ball stuff. Best Ball Mania 3 contest, promo code Run Pure gets new signups up to $100 deposit match bonus with the first deposit. And look, NFL is right around the corner. Obviously, best ball contests have really picked up over the last few years, and Underdog's been the leader in that space. So yes, head over there, code Run Pure, get yourself a $100 deposit match bonus. As always, folks, thank you for watching. Be sure to stay safe. And as my friend Jason says, crush responsibly. Get us out of here, Simon.